So, Brian, hearing Conor McGregor's name
all the time.
Where is Conor McGregor, by the way? But is he in Ireland? Where is he? Does anybody
He's in
know where
Ireland.
he is?
I don't think anybody can leave yet.
Right. So Kamaru Usman and Conor McGregor have had their names in the same sentence recently. And this comes off a tweet that we saw based on a report, I guess, with Brett Okamoto. But basically, ESPN MMA says if he's not fighting Masvidal, Usman's team wants McGregor. And basically, if Jorge Masvidal pursues a rematch with Nate Diaz over a Kamaru Usman title fight, Usman's manager, Ali Abdelaziz, tells Brett Okamoto that they'll ask the UFC to offer the 170-pound title shot to Conor McGregor. So I want to know what you think about that.
You know what? I think there's a couple things that come to me when I see that. First and foremost, the prevailing concept is nobody is afraid of Conor McGregor anymore.
Right.
When you have the champion, generally the way it goes is a challenger, a hungry challenger hunts the champion.
Mm-hmm.
Kamaru Usman knows what the payday is that's associated with fighting Conor McGregor, even though Conor McGregor is not the champion, never been a champion at 170 pounds, which is where Usman holds his title. But he's like, no, I want you, bro. You come here. You do all the talking. You say all of the stuff. You command the biggest paychecks. I want you. Come here.
Right.
So that's pretty interesting to me.
Well, look, I asked you a week ago when we were talking, and you were leading up to UFC 249 and the fight night shows. I said, who's the biggest name in the UFC?
Yeah. And
you said still Conor.
Yep.
And look, I mean, at a day and age where guys are trying to chase down big fights, I guess at the end of the day, getting paid is the key for a lot of these guys. So I have two questions for you. Number one, does anyone want to see another Nate Diaz fight? Number two, which fight would you rather see if there was an option between Usman and
Conor?
Conor, yeah.
Well, honestly, a lot of people still would love to see Nate Diaz fight. I personally consider Nate Diaz probably to be the most overrated mixed martial artist in the history of the sport. That's just me. I don't know another sport where a guy with 0.625 win percentage over his entire career could be considered on the same level that what Nate Diaz is considered by so many people. And I know I'm going to get all kinds of hate comments from, the Diaz mites, but it's true. I mean, the dude, if look at his record, look at who he's lost to. He does have obviously some big wins. He beat Conor. That was a significant victory.
Made him tap.
Of course, made him tap, which is pretty much every time Conor's ever lost. That's how he loses. He taps. That's why Khabib calls him a tapper. He's tapped literally at every single weight class he's ever fought at.
Clever.
So it just is what it is. So, but all of that said, Nate Diaz is still a major draw. People love him. It is about his persona and all of those things. I actually did an interview with Paul Heyman once, and I asked him if there was somebody in mixed martial arts that you thought, or people in mixed martial arts that you thought would do great in WWE. The second name out of his mouth after Chael Sonnen was the Diaz brothers. And because it's about persona. And don't get me wrong, Nate can fight. Nate's a fantastic boxer. He has world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's not great with defense, which is why he tends to lose the fights that he loses. But doesn't check leg kicks, too tough for it. But meanwhile, they score. And he, like I said, he eats a lot of shots. Nate Diaz doesn't have great striking defense. His defense is, I'm gonna hit you back.
Right.
And he has a crowd-pleasing fighting style and all that. So the answer to that first question, yes, there are people who would like to see Nate Diaz, a ton of people. To answer your second question, for me personally, I would rather see Kamaru Usman, Conor McGregor, because I am a guy who I am motivated by championships and watching people compete for championships. I know we're getting into a place where that is not as valued in all combat sports. And I think it's a real shame. I think this whole BMF belt is some big trash. And the UFC should have never allowed that in. I think the fact that it's even a discussion about Jorge Masvidal foregoing a championship bout for a rematch with Nate Diaz, even the fact that that's even a conversation. And the reason why this came about is because Masvidal was on Twitter literally saying, let's run it back, knowing that he has an opportunity to fight for a title. He's still saying, forget that. I'd rather get this check and fight Nate Diaz for a BMF belt.
So
trash.
Didn't Masvidal and Usman have that encounter on Radio Row during Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, to put it like this, every single prominent welterweight just about has had some level of exchange with everybody. Right. I don't care who it is. Kamaru Usman, Kobe Covington have gotten into it. Kamaru Usman, Conor McGregor have traded words. Kamaru Usman, Jorge Masvidal, Covington. It's part of the game. It's not even just a part of the game. It's a part of the game, but it is commonplace in the welterweight division. It's a lot of that that's going on. So
listening to you talk about Nate Diaz and sort of just explaining his career and like where he fits in the ecosystem, I couldn't help but think of Arturo Gatti. And, you know, from, like you said, from a competition standpoint, I mean,
I give him more respect as a talent than Gatti.
Really?
Yeah, he's more talented than Gatti. I mean, Arturo Gatti would never have beaten the equivalent of Conor McGregor in his sport. And the equivalent of Conor McGregor in boxing is not Floyd Mayweather, despite what some people may believe. It's not. He's not that elite. But even for who Conor is, Arturo Gatti would have never beaten that guy either. So, you know, so who
would you compare Nate Diaz then in boxing?
If you were to compare him to somebody in boxing, man, that's a really good question.
But you know what I'm saying? Based on how you described him, big fan base, loyal fan base, very proficient in jiu-jitsu, defense, suspect, too tough to check kicks and defend himself, always shows a lot of blood, always has something interesting to say. Just like Arturo was the human highlight reel.
Man, you know, the one name that just popped in my head was Nigel Benn.
Why?
Nigel Benn had, like, even though he was this villain, he had a
Dark Destroyer.
Yeah, he had this whole kind of presence about him that even though he lost or whatever, and I think Nigel Benn might have 4 knockout victories on his record where he was knocked down and got up to stop a guy, which is like the percentages on that are low.
I think he was knocked out of the ring during the McClellan fight.
Yeah, right. I think he might have
through the ropes.
Through the ropes and fell out. Right. But I think there were like 3 other fights where Ben was dropped, got up, and won by knockout.
Right.
So it's not an apples to apples comparison, but his name is the first one. So what I'm talking about is somebody who is extremely imperfect, but still really good. And they're, as much as their talent accounts for their rep, also it's their persona. And so as I'm thinking, like, James Toney's too good to be Nate Diaz. Right. But it's similar, but he's too good to be Nate Diaz. But I
like Nate Diaz. I just like the way I just like his whole life. It's just a lifestyle thing with him.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I put it like this. I appreciate Nate Diaz's talent. I do. Yeah. But I don't appreciate the fact that he gets more respect than some guys who have had better careers. Okay. That's what I don't like.
Gotcha.
You know. So,
but that's the fans' fault.
It is.
It's not Nate's fault.
No, I mean, if I was Nate, I'd be doing the same thing he's doing.
But I just think that's who he is.
I mean, I'm saying
That comes so natural.
I be walking around telling people I'm the baddest MFer, even though I'm 22-11 or whatever, right?
But that's what's great about it. That's who he is.
Yeah, it's just
he's like the epitome. He's the personification of a fighter.
And I feel that. But what I always like to maintain, and I guess some people don't like this is still a sport. And while I understand that there's a certain amount of toughness that is required, it's
Right.
still a sport. And I like the school of thought that says the people who win the most, the people who win the championships, deserve the love, not the people who can make me believe their comic book persona the best. And so Nate has effectively made you forget how many times he loses because he walks around blood on his face.
How many of those 11 losses do you feel could have gone either way, in your opinion? If you even have seen them all 11 losses.
The Conor McGregor loss definitely could have gone either way. You know, because he won the first fight, made him tap the first fight. The second fight could have easily been.
Conor came on, or Diaz came on late, right?
Well, no. Well, it was up and down. It was up and down. They both of them had moments, you know, and it was a majority decision. He lost a unanimous decision to Rafael dos Anjos. That couldn't have gone either way. He got knocked out by Josh Thompson. That obviously couldn't have gone either way. I thought he got thoroughly outfought by Benson Henderson. I didn't think that could have gone either way. He fought Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald was just too big, too skilled for him. I don't think he's been. The only fight I can say, well, maybe he could have got it, is he lost a split decision to Gray Maynard, and this is back in 2010.
So let me ask you a question with your expertise, okay? If Nate Diaz would have maybe committed himself more in preparation for some of those fights, how many of those do you think wouldn't have gone that way?
You know what? I don't even know if it's about preparation for Nate. What I think it is for Nate is that Nate is not a great athlete. Nate's a very skilled fighter.
Right.
And I think he runs into a ceiling based off of athleticism or a limitation in his athleticism. He is tall for, you know, when he fights at 155. When he fights at 170, not so much.
How tall is he?
6'1".
Really?
Long arms.
So deceiving. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, 6'1", long arms. You know, long-limbed guy, period.
Right,
you know?
It's deceiving. It doesn't, you don't think of him that tall.
Yeah, he's a pretty long guy.
What's
you know,
Conor, like 5'9"?
5'9", 5'10". Huge head, huge neck, wide shoulders.
Yeah.
You know, Conor McGregor appears to be bigger than he is when you look at him. Like when you're standing in front of him, he seems like it's almost like a thinner Mike Tyson kind of a build.
I mean, I've seen him in person once.
Yeah.
The day that he yelled, "I am boxing."
Yeah. Okay.
Just like that was it. He was in a suit. That was the only time I ever seen him in person.
Yeah, I think that was when he had FU in his suit, and it was disguised as pinstripes, but it was really just FU.
Well, no, this was at the Michael Conlon pro debut at the theater, the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden.
Gotcha. Yes.
He walked him into the ring. He was like wearing like a fur coat, and he had a suit on, but waving the Irish flag.
Yeah.
And then he yelled at Dan Rayfield, "I am boxing."
And Dan said, "Okay."
Well, no, Dan said he goes. Anyway, it's a whole other conversation.
I would have loved to have heard what it was, but
it's simple. I'm going to tell you. So Conor walks up to Media Row, and if you've been to the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden, you know, I don't know, maybe it's like 3,000 people. It's like a theater style venue.
It's 7,000.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, it just seems small.
I've been there several times. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to paint a picture for people that might not have been there. It's a legit theater style.
Yes.
So
that's where Professional Fighters League do their biggest shows.
Okay. So there's a stage, then the stage.
Yeah.
That's where they had the media section, and then in front of that is the ring, and then you have the crowd. You know, you have a little bit of ring. It
used to be called the Felt Forum.
Right.
Yeah, that's where the NBA draft used to be.
So they have that little seating. So I was on ringside, right? I'm like right there at ringside, like in the corral. And then he walks over to the media section. He goes, "Who's the boxing guy?" So Dan Rayfield goes, "I'm the boxing guy." And then McGregor goes, "I am boxing." It was a funny moment.
Dan should have said, "Never heard of you."
Yeah. But it was just, but anyway, that's the only time I saw it. I was asking you because it's just deceiving sometimes.
Yeah.
With some of the fighters, you know what I mean? So I didn't realize that Diaz was 6'1".
Yeah, he's a tall guy. But yeah, I mean, I think that's where my kind of is towards Diaz's impact, is I just think he takes the focus away from the championships. And I think he does that purposely to keep himself relevant because he's not a championship contender.
Mm.
And it works.
One more question for you.
Yes.
Masvidal.
Yes.
Well, do you think, obviously, he's a guy that you can argue as well that the record isn't stellar.
No, right.
Right. And his win against, Ben Askren?
Yes.
Right.
Woo.
Okay. Put all of a sudden it was a viral moment.
Yes.
It put him on the mainstream radar. He now owns a UFC record that probably won't be beaten. And if it is, it's going to take some time.
I can't imagine how.
Right. Because people would have to put themselves out there to become the new record.
Yeah, I just don't imagine how you can beat somebody faster than 5 seconds.
So, right.
Mm-hmm.
To that point, what I'm asking you is, would you consider him in that same boat as Nate Diaz, where the name's now much bigger than the talent?
You know what? I don't. I think Masvidal is.
But you see where I'm going with the question, right?
I see where you're going, but what I look at is the people that Masvidal has beaten. And the question that you asked, how many of those fights could have gone either way, either way of the losses? I can tell you that I've watched Masvidal lose super close decisions at least 5 times.
Okay.
I'm talking about stuff that I was like, what? He lost? No way he lost. And so he actually adapted the way that he fought. Around about 2016, 17, he was like, you know what? I'm not getting these decisions. I'm gonna finich people. I'm gonna start finishing people. And everything changed. Everything changed, man. He's won 3 fights in a row. You look at the people that he's beat. He beat Nate Diaz in his last fight, of course, knocked out Ben Askren in 5 seconds. The fight before that, he stains Darren Till.
Right.
He had lost 2 close decisions, the 2 fights before that, but then he knocked out Donald Cerrone when that still meant something. He knocked out Jake Ellenberger. He defeated Ross Pearson. I don't think anybody doubts whether or not Masvidal is that guy. I'm gonna put it to you like this. Kamaru Usman, I believe. See, here's a problem with Nate Diaz, right?
Okay.
Because I can imagine Nate Diaz giving just about everybody a tough fight.
Right.
But I think he's going to lose. I think he loses to Usman. I think he loses to Usman and creates a narrative after the fight that makes him still look like he won.
So
that's what he does.
Makes Usman look bad? Does Usman stop him?
He could. Usman could. The thing about Usman is Usman doesn't crack. And Nate Diaz has a stupid chin.
Right.
If you stop Nate Diaz, it's going to be because he's cut up and bloody and the doctor says his eye's falling out. We got to stop it.
So Masvidal Usman, who wins?
It's a great fight. It's a great fight, man.
So what I'm saying is that taking McGregor out of the picture, then isn't that the fight that probably most people want to see?
That's the fight that makes the most sense. Okay. It makes the most sense from a sporting standpoint.
Right.
But unfortunately, that's not the only thing that's being discussed.
I enjoyed this round 1.
Hey, yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
I got a little education here. This is good.